It's quite intriguing to consider that someone who is known for being quite reserved and guarded, with a passion for fast cars and an unparalleled talent for comedic brilliance, would feel compelled to take a stand against the growing levels of censorship that are becoming more normalized in our society.
It's my passionate belief that the second most precious thing in life is the right to express yourself freely. The most precious thing in life, I think, is food in your mouth. And the third most precious is a roof over your head. But a fixture for me in the number 2 slot is free expression, just below the need to sustain life itself.
The ability to laugh, live authentically, and respect others' opinions, even when we might disagree, are fundamental to our shared humanity. This isn't just about disagreeing with someone's perspective. It's about recognizing that, in good faith, we must uphold freedom of speech as one of our most sacred values. This principle sits at the top of our value system, almost to the point of being sacred, because from it springs all meaning and true connection among people. The importance of freedom of speech can't be overstated, especially in a time when it seems increasingly under threat.
That is because I have enjoyed free expression in this country all my professional life and fully expect to continue to do so. Personally, I suspect highly unlikely to be arrested for whatever laws exist to contain free expression because of the undoubtedly privileged position that is afforded to those of a high public profile.
The idea that we must believe in freedom of expression is crucial, as it allows us to express ourselves freely and engage in robust dialogue without fear of retribution. Freedom of speech isn't just a right, it's a necessity for a healthy, functioning society.
I once did a show called Not the 9 O'Clock News some years ago, and we did a sketch where Griff Rhys-Jones played Constable Savage, a manifestly racist police officer to whom I, as his station commander, is giving a dressing down for arresting a black man on a whole string of ridiculous, trumped-up and ludicrous charges. The charges for which Constable Savage arrested Mr. Winston Kadogo of 55 Mercer Road were these.
The notion that we might disagree or dispute another's way of living or communicating is natural, but it's essential that these disagreements occur within the framework of mutual respect for free expression. The speech became particularly relevant in light of recent changes in the UK's stance on censorship and the increasing instances of individuals being incarcerated for participating in protests. Like many, I abhor violence and am repulsed by racism. I believe that unity among us is the first step towards challenging those who seek to control us. This speech offered a powerful defense of free speech, echoing the sentiment that if we want a robust society, we need robust dialogue. Dialogue that sometimes includes the right to insult or offend.
I read somewhere a defender of the status quo claiming that the fact that the gay horse case was dropped after the arrested man refused to pay the fine, and that the Scientology case was also dropped at some point during the court process, was proof that the law was working well, ignoring the fact that the only reason these cases were dropped was because of the publicity that they had attracted.
The speaker's passionate belief in the value of free expression is evident throughout their address. They emphasized that the right to express oneself freely is one of the most precious things in life, second only to basic necessities like food and shelter. This belief is born from a lifetime of enjoying free expression and the expectation that this freedom should continue. However, the speaker's concerns extend beyond themselves to those who are more vulnerable, particularly individuals with lower public profiles who are more susceptible to the chilling effects of censorship.
But what about the thousands of other cases that did not enjoy the oxygen of publicity, that weren't quite ludicrous enough to attract media attention? Even for those actions that were withdrawn, people were arrested, questioned, taken to court, and then released. You know, that isn't a law working properly. That is censoriousness of the most intimidating kind, guaranteed to have, as Lord Deer says, a chilling effect on free expression and free protest.
Examples of such censorship were provided, including cases where individuals were arrested for actions that many would consider absurd, such as calling a police horse gay or labeling the Church of Scientology a cult. These examples illustrate the dangers of a society that increasingly seeks to suppress dissent and control free expression. The law, which should protect freedom, is instead being used to stifle it. This is not how a society that values free speech should operate. The dangers of censorship are not just theoretical. The speaker highlighted that when even seemingly trivial cases attract public attention, they are often dropped, not because they lack merit, but because those enforcing the law fear public ridicule. However, many other cases don't receive this attention and result in individuals being arrested, questioned, and taken to court, only to be released later. This creates a climate of fear and intimidation, where people are reluctant to speak out for fear of legal repercussions. This growing culture of censorship is indicative of a broader trend towards authoritarianism.
Parliament's Joint Committee on Human Rights summarised, as you may know, this whole issue very well by saying, while arresting a protester for using threatening or abusive speech may, depending on the circumstances, be a proportionate response, we do not think that language or behaviour that is merely insulting should ever be criminalised in this way.
Successive governments, with ostensibly good intentions, have created a society that is increasingly intolerant of dissenting voices. This new form of intolerance is often justified by the claim that it is only intolerant of intolerance itself. However, this logic is flawed, as it merely replaces one form of intolerance with another, without addressing the underlying issues. The speaker argued that the best way to build a society's resilience to offensive speech is to allow more of it. Just as exposure to germs can strengthen our immune systems, exposure to challenging ideas can help us better handle criticism and dissent. By focusing on the message rather than silencing the messenger, we can foster a more open and robust society. This speech is a small but significant step in the ongoing battle against censorship and the creeping culture of control that threatens our freedom. It serves as a reminder that while we may face new challenges, the principles of free speech and open dialogue must remain at the core of our society. In this spirit, we must continue to demand our rights and be willing to protest, always peacefully and with love in our hearts. The driver of Princess Diana, finally breaking his silence, shared chilling details live on TV that shook the world.
I had to turn away, think about it, and then grip myself back and get on with what I was doing.
Princess Diana's untimely and unusual injury, a mystery that has haunted us all, was revealed to be the cause of her tragic death.
She was talking and they were worried about other people, and it was only later that she had a very unusual injury.
I just felt that it was appearing every day in newspapers and various things, and I was listening to people, and that was an emotional day on the day that she...
Imagine the driver's shock, hearing of the princess's horrific accident while he was in the comfort of his bed.
You got the phone call and,
Yes, I can, vividly.
What was it like? Where were you?
I was in bed with my wife, and she answered the phone. I had a bit of banter with the guy on the other end, and then she looked round at me and said, I think you better get up and sit on the end of the bed and take this phone call.
His colleague relayed to him with a grave tone that the princess had sustained severe injuries as a result of an unfortunate accident.
And it was a colleague from Balmoral who was telling me that Her Royal Highness was actually injured. And put the television on and you'll see. So that's what I did. It was a bit of a shock. Got dressed and then went down to Kensington Palace.
Summoned to the palace after the accident, he recounted the surreal and heart-wrenching experience of being thrust into a tragedy.
Yes, it was quite difficult because Robin Cook, who was then the Foreign Secretary, was on the television giving what had happened. And he was explaining that she was injured. When in fact the private secretary, Michael, was telling the 6 of us in the office that sadly she'd...
When he landed in Paris, the atmosphere was thick with tension and sorrow, a city mourning the loss of a beloved icon.
Yes, the 24 hours was quite difficult. Getting to Paris was fine. Getting to the embassy was great, except I didn't speak French. My wife speaks it fluently, which a phone helped. And I knew one of the military attachés, Brigadier Ritchie, who immediately came into the room, and he used to work with Princess Anne.
The hospital was flooded with people desperate to know the princess's condition, a testament to her global impact.
So I was taken in to help, where I went to the hotel, and then I went to the hospital and arrived at the hospital. Lots of people about, on I think it was the first floor, and there was a lot of people.
The driver, maintaining his professionalism amid the chaos, felt the weight of the world's grief and disbelief.
Yes, I mean, I was an ex-inspector, but I did say that perhaps people are expecting lords, ladies and colonels in this in this particular instance, but we were dealt with by Sir Michael J. very, very well, and given everything that I needed, I was given.
He described the emotional torment of seeing Princess Diana in a hospital bed, a stark contrast to her usual radiant presence.
It's very difficult and emotional to see a person lying in a bed and not in a mortuary. And when I was in the room, which was very, very hot, I looked out of the window and I could see people on a roof. Now, whether they knew where the princess was, I don't know, but that worried me. So I got some blankets because there was no curtains, and we put blankets along the windows, which made it even hotter in the room. And I then went and got some fans to try and cool the room down. And that one moment in my life, which perhaps my professionalism was lacking a little bit, because as I turned round, the eyelashes and the hair of the princess were moving, caused by the fan. And that just struck me. I had to turn away, think about it, and then grip myself back and get on with what I was doing.
You didn't believe she would?
For a long time. I just refused to accept that she was gone. Part of, she would never do this to us, but also part of, maybe this is all part of a plan.
I mean, you really believe that maybe she had just decided to disappear for a time?
For a time, and then that she would call us and we would go and join her. Yeah.
How long did you believe that?
Years. Many, many years. And William and I talked about it as well. Mainly proof that she was in the car, proof that she was injured, and proof that the very paparazzi that chased her into the tunnel were the ones that were taking photographs of her lying half on the backseat of the car.
You write, I hadn't been aware before this moment, talking about looking at the pictures of the crash scene, that the last thing Mummy saw on this earth was a flashbulb. That's what you saw in the pictures. The
pictures showed the reflection of a group of photographers taking photographs through the window, and the reflection of the window was them.
Conspiracy theories swirled around the accident, each more sinister than the last, demanding thorough investigation.
I wasn't involved in the first examination, and of course she was then buried, so we didn't exhume her and have another look, but it was a review of all of the circumstances. There were so many conspiracy theories that needed to be looked at and properly examined. They were sort of glossed over a bit to begin with. So we went back and we did that. And so I looked obviously at the pathology, not just of Diana, but also of Henri Paul, who was the driver, and Dodie, who was her lover, and a guy called Trevor Rees-Jones, who was a security guard. So 4 people in that Mercedes. Now, if you have a crash at about 60 miles an hour in a Mercedes, you should walk away. And the thing I learned was that you put your seatbelt on, because Diana didn't have a seatbelt on. Dodie didn't have a seatbelt on. Henri Paul, the driver, didn't have a seatbelt on. Trevor Rees-Jones realised something was going wrong and just got his seatbelt on in time, because he lived to tell the tale. And when the car hit the bridge pillar, interestingly, the 13th pillar on the bridge, I mean, it adds to the conspiracy, doesn't it? It's got to be the 13th pillar. How the SAS managed to get them to hit the 13th pillar, I don't know. But, when they hit the pillar, Dodie hit the back of Henri Paul with a weight of about 3 elephants. And then Henri Paul hit the steering wheel. They were instantly. Diana wasn't badly injured. She'd broken an arm and had a couple of other little injuries. But, I mean, she should have survived, and she was partly protected by Rhys Jones because she hit the back of his seat and was saved a bit. And in fact, when they arrived, they thought she was okay. She was talking, and they were worried about other people. And it was only later that she had a very unusual injury deep in the centre of her chest that no one knew was there. And when she became ill and collapsed, it was at that point it became too late, and she after surgery.
Despite her royal status, the driver fondly remembered Princess Diana's tremendous sense of humour, a light in the darkness.
There is a line. You don't cross that line. You speak to when you're spoken to. And it is still very correct. She was still very royal. And yes, we were often together in the car, and it would be light conversation. She had a tremendous sense of humour. And wherever we went, I never had a crossword in the 2 years. Not one crossword. I think they went in too fast, but in the inquest, that was sorted out. I've driven through the tunnel myself. There are stanchions in the tunnel, which if you can be taken a little bit by, if you're at 2 trains in a station, one moves out, you think you're moving. You go into fast where there's stanchions, it's getting a little bit worrying. So whatever happened, I perhaps a little bit too fast and being taken away with the lady in the back.
And what are your memories of Princess Diana now? Because, of course, that was such an emotional time and 20 years ago, but when you think back and think of her legacy?
A great boss. I felt the last year from August the 28th when the divorce came through, that year up to she felt to me, because I didn't work with her years ago as a police officer, I was with Princess Anne, but she was good. She seemed to be living a good life and happy.
I was in bed in the embassy, and the 2 phone calls came early on and told me that there had been an accident, and clearly I needed to get to the hospital quickly. When we arrived, we were met by the French Interior Minister, Jean-Pierre Chevènement, and he said he had heard that there'd been the accident. She had been badly hurt, but didn't know how badly she'd been hurt. And then Chevènement was taken out by one of the nurses, and he came back in tears, really, and came up to me and said, "I'm afraid she's." But then after we had heard that she had, then I was on the phone, clearly to Robin Janvin in Balmoral to tell him so he could tell the royal family that she had, and also to Downing Street. It was just getting light. 2 Mercedes drew up, and I told him that the Princess of Wales was, he knew that his son had died, and we offered our condolences.
Prince Harry, grappling with his own grief, was shielded from viewing the more gruesome photographs of his mother's final moments.
All I saw was the back of my mum's head, slumped on the back seat. There were other more gruesome photographs, but I will be eternally grateful to him for denying me the ability to inflict pain on myself by saying that, because that's the kind of stuff that sticks in your mind forever.
There was a tremendous shock in the hospital at that stage. And certainly when I was told, and we were told that she had, we were aware that this was a profoundly moving moment for all those who had been involved. My wife and I went to Villacoublay, the official airport, to meet the Prince of Wales. He said how Prince William had wanted to go to church that morning, which was not, he said, something Prince William always wanted to do on a Sunday morning. So they had been to church, but throughout that day, that morning, he had wanted to do what he thought was in the best interests of 2 children who had lost their mother rather brutally. The feeling I had from the conversation I had with the Prince of Wales and the conversation I had later on with the Queen was the concern of a family who had lost a member of that family, and a family, in particular the Prince of Wales, who knew that his children had lost their mother. curious that the nation wanted to share their grief, it seems to me, with someone, and the person they wanted to share their grief with was the Queen. And when the Queen came to London, I think that was, in a sense, a cathartic moment for the royal family, and was a sense that the royal family and the Queen was responding to the grief which the nation felt.
She was the villain. She was the third person in the marriage. She needed.
Let's take a look at the intriguing and controversial life of King Charles, a prominent figure in the British royal family, as Kayleigh McEnany unveils a comprehensive exposé on his secrets, scandals, and untold stories. This revealing narrative also sheds light on the journey of his current queen consort, Camilla Parker Bowles. From the early days of Camilla's romance with Prince Charles, through years of public scrutiny and scandal, to her eventual acceptance into the royal fold, we explore every detail of their complex relationship. Discover how a single phone call almost brought down the British monarchy, and how a secret love affair existed long before Princess Diana came into the picture. Get ready to delve into the hidden truths behind the headlines, as we examine how Camilla transformed from one of the most reviled women in Britain to queen consort. This story spans decades and includes some of the most shocking moments in royal history, as revealed by Kayleigh McEnany. Starting from the beginning, we follow the current queen consort, Camilla Parker Bowles, and King Charles as they navigate their new roles amidst ongoing public scrutiny. Their relationship has been anything but smooth, marked by scandal and controversy, notably during Charles's marriage to Princess Diana. However, the revelations didn't stop there. Uncover the secret Queen Camilla revealed about King Charles, and explore the royal love story that intertwines Charles, Camilla, and Diana, adding layers of intrigue to this narrative that mirrors a fairy tale with its unexpected twists and turns. On a breezy afternoon in 1970, during a polo match at Windsor Great Park, Charles encountered Camilla. She broke the ice by mentioning that her great-grandmother had been the mistress of Charles's great-great-grandfather, highlighting their shared history. It's quite an introduction. Historians suggest they may have been introduced by a mutual friend, Lucia Santa Cruz, but regardless of how it happened, sparks flew, and they began dating. Their bond was genuine, marked by real happiness and togetherness. However, their romance was interrupted when Charles was sent to serve in the Royal Navy. During their time apart, Camilla made a pivotal decision and married Andrew Parker Bowles in 1973, a man who had once dated Charles's sister, Princess Anne. Despite her marriage, Camilla and Charles maintained their connection, with Charles even becoming the godfather to Camilla's son Tom. Rumor has it that Charles made a last-minute attempt to stop Camilla's wedding. Imagine the heartache of watching someone you love marry another. Before Diana entered the scene, Charles had a brief romance with her sister, Sarah Spencer, in 1977. This relationship ended when Sarah overshared with the press, but she played a crucial role in introducing Charles to her younger sister, Diana, at Althorpe House during a pheasant hunt. This introduction set the stage for Charles and Diana's relationship. Charles's relationship with Diana was heavily influenced by royal expectations. By the late 1970s, he was under pressure to find a suitable wife, and Diana, young and seemingly perfect for the role of a princess, fit the bill. Despite this, Charles's heart always seemed to be drawn to Camilla. Their early days were filled with joy, a stark contrast to the challenges that lay ahead for Charles. The impact of Charles's first love with Camilla was profound, enduring through the years. Camilla would later reveal the full truth about Charles. But before we get to that revelation, let's delve deeper into Charles and Diana's story, from teenage crush to royal partnership. Their early days were filled with charming but awkward moments. In November 1977, Diana, a 16-year-old schoolgirl, met 28-year-old Charles, a prominent royal figure, at Althorpe. Thanks to her sister Sarah, who had once dated Charles, the dinner was buzzing with excitement when the prince arrived. Diana made a lasting impression with her lively personality, catching Charles's attention. He even asked her for a dance after dinner, marking their first formal meeting. In 1978, Diana found herself amid the grandeur of Buckingham Palace, attending Charles's 30th birthday celebration. This event, filled with royalty and elite figures, was a world Diana, still a teenager, had to navigate. Their next notable meeting occurred 2 years later, in 1980, at a friend's house party. During this time, Charles was deeply affected by the tragic loss of Lord Mountbatten. Diana's empathy and kind words touched Charles profoundly. She noticed his sadness and told him he shouldn't be lonely and deserved someone to care for him. This genuine moment of compassion brought them closer, revealing a side of Diana that Charles hadn't fully seen before. Diana's popularity with the public soared, endearing her to the British people with her genuine warmth and relatability. This increasing public admiration added strain to her already challenging marriage with Charles. The constant media spotlight created a fishbowl existence for Diana, where every move was scrutinized and every gesture analyzed. Despite the glamour and prestige of her position, Diana's life was far from a fairy tale, filled with personal struggles and a relentless quest for privacy and normalcy for herself and her children. Her journey was marked by immense personal growth and resilience, even as she sought to find her own identity within the strict confines of royal expectations. Later that year, Diana received an invitation to the royal family's Balmoral estate. This visit was significant, almost like an audition for royal approval. Diana fit in effortlessly, charming everyone with her natural ease, and even learning to fish with Charles. The paparazzi quickly caught on to their growing relationship, and Diana became a media sensation. They were particularly captivated by a photo of her at her kindergarten job, which inadvertently revealed more than intended due to the sunlight behind her skirt. Charles's comment about Diana's legs being spectacular indicated a shift in their relationship to something more personal and less formal. By January 1981, with the media frenzy at its peak, Prince Philip decided it was time for Charles to make a decision. He sent a letter to Charles, urging him to either propose to Diana or end their relationship to protect her reputation. Charles took this as a royal mandate, leading to a proposal and what would become the wedding of the century. On February 6, 1981, Charles proposed to Diana, and she accepted. This royal engagement was a major event, filled with immense pressure and expectations. A few weeks after the proposal, the couple gave a televised interview. It was charming until a seemingly simple question cast a shadow over their happy news. When asked if they were in love, Diana immediately said yes, but Charles's ambiguous response about what being in love meant raised some eyebrows. At the time, this was perhaps seen as typical royal reserve. On July 29, 1981, the highly anticipated royal wedding took place at St. Paul's Cathedral in London, drawing an estimated 750 million viewers worldwide. Diana, stunning in an ivory silk gown with a 25-foot train, the longest ever worn by a British royal bride, exuded elegance despite her visible nerves, which led her to mistakenly call Charles by the wrong name during their vows. The wedding's splendor was undeniable, yet hints of underlying challenges and pressures were present from the beginning. Remarkably, Diana and Charles had only met 13 times before his proposal. Imagine committing to marriage after so few encounters. Their honeymoon, expected to be filled with romance and joy, turned out to be far from idyllic. Instead of basking in newlywed bliss, the couple spent time reading books by Charles's favorite author, Lawrence van der Post. Diana later revealed in taped interviews for a biography that her hopes had already faded by the second day of the honeymoon. She felt exhausted and emotionally drained, not from happiness, but from the immense pressure of adapting to her new royal role. In retrospect, both the engagement and wedding were grand yet bittersweet events, marked by celebration and underlying struggles, with millions witnessing only the surface glitter, unaware of the deeper challenges. Despite their history, Camilla attended the royal wedding, likely due to her husband, Andrew Parker Bowles's position as the commanding officer of the Household Cavalry Mounted Regiment. At this time, both Charles and Camilla were married to others, and it seemed their romantic involvement had ended. However, soon enough, royal secrets would begin to unravel, revealing that the fairy tale was more complex than it appeared. Diana's turbulent royal life. From the moment Diana stepped into the royal spotlight, her life seemed like a fairy tale. However, beneath the grandeur and sparkling tiaras lay a world of struggle, heartache, and private battles. Let's delve into the challenges Princess Diana faced during her marriage to Prince Charles, including mental health issues, public scandals, and a marriage fraught with turmoil. At just 19 years old, Diana transitioned abruptly from a simple life in a London flat shared with friends to the isolated opulence of Buckingham Palace. The lively girl who charmed everyone at Balmoral soon became distressed and jealous, her moods swinging wildly under the intense pressures of her new royal duties, according to her biographer, Penny Junor. The constant scrutiny and high expectations overwhelmed her, marking the beginning of a turbulent royal journey. The spotlight only magnified Diana's private struggles. She battled bulimia, a disorder often reflecting deeper emotional turmoil. Penny Junor notes that this wasn't just about food. It was a manifestation of Diana's ongoing mental health issues, rooted in a traumatic childhood marred by her parents' unhappy marriage. Diana later described bulimia as a secret disease, a desperate attempt to find comfort, followed by intense disgust and further emotional pain. One of the most heartbreaking moments in Diana's story occurred on the eve of her wedding. Her astrologer revealed that Charles confessed he didn't love her just before their wedding, a time that should have been filled with hope and joy, not despair. This devastating confession set a tone of heartache from the start. The strains in their relationship were exacerbated by lingering connections to past relationships. Just before their wedding, Diana found a bracelet Charles had intended for Camilla Parker Bowles, inscribed with the initials G and F, nicknames for each other. This discovery, amid intense public scrutiny, deepened Diana's insecurities and doubts. Diana's candid revelations about her struggles came to light in her 1995 interview with Martin Bashir, where she openly discussed her bulimia and feelings of inadequacy. This interview, though controversial in how it was obtained, offered a glimpse into the profound isolation and distress Diana experienced, highlighting her bravery in confronting such personal demons publicly. Behind the smiles and royal duties was a woman who battled severe personal challenges, fought for her sense of self, and faced a marriage that began with a heartbreakingly honest admission. Despite the facade of a fairy tale, Diana's royal life was marked by profound personal growth and resilience in the face of immense pressure. Charles, Camilla, and Diana. The hidden turmoil behind the royal facade. The discovery of a bracelet intended for Camilla Parker Bowles set off a chain of events that would eventually lead to the divorce of Prince Charles and Princess Diana. Although Camilla attended the royal wedding, many believed she and Charles had not been in contact for 5 years. The reality, however, was quite different, and the truth was about to unravel in a most dramatic fashion. Before the chaos, Charles and Diana's marriage appeared to be a fairy tale. However, behind the palace doors, it was a different story. Charles had a history with Camilla Parker Bowles, a vibrant woman he met through a friend in the 1970s. They clicked instantly, but the expectations of royal life pushed Charles to seek a wife who fit the mold of a future queen. Lady Diana Spencer was young and noble, but perhaps not entirely prepared for the challenges ahead. In 1981, she and Charles exchanged vows in a grand royal wedding. The twist. Camilla was present among the multitude of guests, and not just as an observer. Unbeknownst to the radiant bride, the stage for a royal scandal had already been set. As the initial enchantment of the marriage wore off, the harsh reality of their loveless union hit Diana hard. She felt isolated and unloved, while Charles seemed distant, his affections elsewhere. It wasn't long before Diana's suspicions about Charles's fidelity grew, leading to a shocking discovery. A bracelet intended as a gift from Charles to Camilla, hidden away, but not well enough. The bracelet, a secret token meant for Camilla just before Charles's wedding to Diana, surfaced at the worst possible time. Diana confronted Charles, but received nothing more than excuses and dismissals. However, small clues, a phone call here, a bouquet of flowers there, indicated this was no ordinary friendship. The royal marriage was deteriorating, and the public was beginning to take notice. By 1989, the situation had reached a breaking point. Charles and Camilla had rekindled their old romance, and Diana was fully aware. She decided she had had enough. At a birthday party attended by both Camilla and Diana, the stage was set for a royal confrontation. Summoning all her courage, Diana approached Camilla for a chat. The air was thick with tension as Diana laid it all out, making it clear she knew what was going on between her and Charles. Camilla, though caught off guard, maintained her composure and responded in a way that must have felt like a slap, telling Diana she had everything she could want: men falling in love with her and 2 beautiful children. Diana, burdened by her broken heart, simply expressed her desire for her husband. The confrontation didn't magically solve anything. Diana knew she was fighting a losing battle. With dignity, she ended the conversation, leaving a stinging reminder to Camilla that despite their mutual difficulties, she was fully aware of the affair and refused to be treated like a fool. This event marked the beginning of the end for Charles and Diana's marriage. Their relationship, which had started with such public fanfare, was now crumbling under the weight of deceit and betrayal. As the royal secrets spilled into the public domain, the fairy tale facade disintegrated, revealing the complex and painful reality behind the palace walls. Royal breakups and conspiracies. The late 80s marked the beginning of the end for the fairy tale marriage of Prince Charles and Princess Diana. By 1986, their lives had drifted apart, with Charles seeking comfort in the familiar company of Camilla Parker Bowles, rekindling a relationship that had never truly extinguished. In December 1992, the British Prime Minister made a televised announcement declaring the official separation of Charles and Diana. The situation took a dramatic turn in the summer of 1994, when Charles, during a revealing interview with Jonathan Dimbleby, openly admitted to his affair. His cold demeanor towards Diana and their sons caused a public outcry and led Camilla's husband, Andrew Parker Bowles, to seek a divorce. The fallout was swift and relentless. Diana had her moment to speak in November 1995 with her now famous Panorama interview, candidly stating, "There were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded." This was a breaking point for the Queen, who soon after urged Charles and Diana to divorce. By August 1996, their marriage was officially dissolved. The story took a tragic turn just a year later when Diana died in a car crash in Paris in 1997, at only 36 years old. As paparazzi chased their car, it crashed in the Pont de l'Alma tunnel, resulting in the deaths of Diana, her companion, Dodi Fayed, and the driver, Henry Paul. Her bodyguard survived but was severely injured. The tragic incident sparked numerous conspiracy theories. Some speculated that the crash was not a mere accident, but a calculated move, possibly involving the royal family to clear the path for Charles to marry Camilla. Although Charles initially claimed he had no plans to remarry, the reality turned out differently. In the late 80s, the public facade of Prince Charles and Princess Diana's marriage began to show significant cracks. By 1986, they were living almost entirely separate lives. Charles revived his relationship with Camilla Parker Bowles, an old flame whose bond with him had never completely faded. The public announcement of their separation came in December 1992, delivered by the British Prime Minister on national television. A crucial moment occurred in the summer of 1994, when Charles, in an interview with Jonathan Dimbleby, admitted to his affair with Camilla. His apparent lack of affection towards Diana and their sons caused a stir, prompting Camilla's husband, Andrew Parker Bowles, to file for divorce. The chain reaction was swift and dramatic. Diana's candid Panorama interview in November 1995, where she famously remarked, "There were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded," prompted the Queen to advise Charles and Diana to divorce. By August 1996, their marriage was officially over. Tragically, just a year later, Diana died in a car crash in Paris in 1997 at the age of 36. Pursued by paparazzi, the car crashed in the Pont de l'Alma tunnel, claiming the lives of Diana, her companion Dodi Fayed, and the driver Henry Paul. Her bodyguard survived but was critically injured. The circumstances of Diana's death quickly became enveloped in conspiracy theories. Speculations arose that the crash was not simply an accident, with some suggesting that the royal family might have been involved to facilitate Charles's marriage to Camilla. Despite Charles's initial assertions of having no plans to remarry, the future would reveal a different reality, adding another layer of complexity to this already intricate royal saga. The story of Charles and Camilla old love, they say, never truly dies. It simply waits for the right moment to flourish once more. This was certainly the case for Prince Charles and Camilla Parker Bowles, whose romance reignited under difficult circumstances following Princess Diana's tragic death in 1997. Navigating the intense media scrutiny and public heartbreak over Diana, Charles and Camilla faced a challenging journey toward acceptance. In 1998, Prince William, still in his teens, met Camilla during a visit to his father at St. James's Palace. The encounter was understandably tense, marking the beginning of Camilla's gradual introduction into William and Harry's lives. Their early meetings over lunches and teas were awkward but necessary steps toward building a relationship. Initially, Queen Elizabeth II showed no support for Camilla, even referring to her as that wicked woman. It wasn't until 2000 that the Queen began to soften, joining Charles and Camilla for a lunch that quietly indicated her acceptance. Things started looking up when Charles and Camilla made their first public appearance together in January 1999 at a birthday party for Camilla's sister. Arriving separately to maintain a low profile, they left together, causing a media frenzy and slowly easing Camilla into the public eye. By the time of the Queen Mother's funeral in 2002, Camilla stood by Charles, presenting herself as his partner. That same year, she undertook her first solo public engagement, a significant step in her public life. In 2003, the couple moved in together at Clarence House, making their relationship official without the bond of marriage. Everything changed on February 10, 2005, when Charles and Camilla announced their engagement, a moment that captured headlines and public interest. Camilla humorously shared that Charles had indeed gotten down on one knee to propose. The engagement was warmly welcomed by the royal family, with William and Harry expressing their happiness for the couple. The wedding, held on April 9, 2005 at Windsor Guildhall, was a modest affair. They chose a simple ceremony with close family and friends, foregoing the typical grandeur of a royal wedding. The Queen did not attend the ceremony, but joined the couple for the blessing at St. George's Chapel afterward. In the wake of Diana's death in 1997, Charles and Camilla found their romance rekindled amidst public mourning and media scrutiny. This period was fraught with challenges as they sought acceptance. In 1998, a teenage Prince William had an uncomfortable meeting with Camilla at St. James's Palace, a crucial step in her gradual introduction to the royal family. Initial interactions over lunches and teas were awkward but necessary. Queen Elizabeth II was initially resistant to Camilla, dubbing her that wicked woman. However, by 2000, her stance softened, and she dined with Charles and Camilla, subtly signaling her approval. Public appearances followed, with a significant one in January 1999 at a birthday party for Camilla's sister. Arriving separately but leaving together, Charles and Camilla's public outing created a media storm, paving the way for Camilla's acceptance. By the Queen Mother's funeral in 2002, Camilla stood by Charles, solidifying her role as his partner. She also embarked on her first solo public engagement that year, a critical move in her royal journey. By 2003, Charles and Camilla had moved in together at Clarence House, signifying their serious commitment. On February 10, 2005, Charles and Camilla announced their engagement, a moment of public and media excitement. Camilla shared that Charles had indeed proposed on one knee. The engagement was warmly received by the family, with William and Harry expressing their support. The wedding on April 9, 2005, at Windsor Guildhall was understated and intimate, attended by close family and friends. The Queen skipped the ceremony but attended the subsequent blessing at St. George's Chapel, showing her support. The journey of Charles and Camilla, marked by rekindled love, public scrutiny, and gradual acceptance, culminated in a modest yet meaningful wedding, symbolizing a new beginning for the couple. From scandal to crown, when Queen Elizabeth II passed away, the dynamics of the British monarchy underwent a significant transformation. Charles ascended the throne as King Charles III, and in a surprising twist, Camilla was named Queen Consort. This development was unexpected, especially considering Queen Elizabeth's initial reluctance to accept Camilla. Over the years, however, Camilla proved her loyalty and dedication, eventually earning the Queen's endorsement in a heartfelt message. This endorsement, which seemed unthinkable decades ago, marked a dramatic shift in the royal narrative, turning Camilla from a figure of skepticism into a respected pillar of the monarchy. The late Queen's public blessing underscored Camilla's journey and emphasized her commitment to the crown, encouraging others to support Charles and Camilla as they had supported her. The question of why Charles married Diana when his heart belonged to Camilla lingered in the minds of many. This dilemma highlighted the conflict between royal duties and personal happiness. Diana, trapped in a loveless marriage, suffered immensely, enduring years of emotional distress. Charles's marriage to Diana, despite his enduring love for Camilla, underscored the immense pressure and expectations placed on royal family members to prioritize duty over personal desire, often leading to profound personal sacrifices. The Tampon Gate scandal. One of the most notorious scandals in royal history erupted when details of a private phone conversation between Charles and Camilla from 1989 were leaked. Dubbed Tampon Gate, or Camilla Gate, this scandal was not just typical tabloid fare. It was a royal catastrophe. At the time of the call, both Charles and Camilla were married to other people. The conversation, however, was anything but ordinary, with Charles expressing a desire to be reincarnated as Camilla's tampon, a bizarrely intimate statement that somehow became public. This scandalous exchange made headlines under the sensational title, Charles and Camilla, the Tape. The People newspaper published a full transcript of their 6-minute conversation, and to add to the humiliation, audio of the conversation was also released. The release of such a private and intimate conversation raised questions about who might be responsible for the leak. And this incident remains one of the most memorable royal embarrassments, illustrating the intense scrutiny and public interest in the personal lives of the royal family. Do you think Camilla is to blame? What are your thoughts on these events? Let us know in the comments below, and as always, we'll see you in the next video.
But the problem with royal families always is the same, which is the problem of princes. And it's an example of what happens when the woke mind virus just finds its way all the way to the center of what used to be your brain.
Murray sees the king's actions as strategic maneuvering, well versed in the monarchy's ways.
I can save him the time and a certain amount of money by telling him what the historical situation is. I'm sure he's aware of it. I'd like to think that this is a sort of outmaneuvering by the king, and that he's well aware that actually the history of the British monarchy is a very noble history by the end. About
King George III signed the Anti-Bondman Act in the early 1800s.
King George III signed the Anti Act in the first decade of the 1800s. Consecutive British monarchs after the British abolished, not just in Britain but across the empire, and then policed the abolition of the trade across the high seas.
Successive British monarchs fiercely opposed captivity and enacted laws against it.
Consecutive British monarchs spoke out incredibly forcefully, as well as enacting actual laws against. So it's a rather strange thing for King Charles to do. I'm hoping, as I say, that it's a sort of some kind of bluff of a kind, so that the people who say, aha, we're going to finally get the secret history, because of course, after all, Rita, the history of the British monarchy is incredibly secretive. I mean, nobody has ever commented upon it, and there are no books on it.
Murray hopes to pacify the uninformed and then educate them.
There's no way you could find out any of this stuff from simply, going to a library or something.
Prince Harry finds himself in a tough spot with his first award nomination.
And if this is your vision How are you not there to lay out your vision in front of everyone on day one and say, this is how I see this event rolling out, or this is how the day is supposed to go? I think that it puts Prince Harry in a very difficult position because this is their first one.
Prince Harry was nominated for the award, and it immediately sparked a huge backlash.
So Prince Harry was nominated for the award, and it immediately sparked a huge backlash. Mary Tillman, Pat Tillman's mother, came out and said, "I am shocked as to why they would select such a controversial and divisive individual to receive the award. There are recipients that are far more fitting." There was also a petition launched that had 70,000 signatures calling for Prince Harry to turn down the award, or for ESPN to nominate someone else.
No, I think Harry is definitely wondering that because he hated every minute of getting on that stage.
How do you know that?
Because I've watched the video. He's a face of thunder, he's exhaling, he looks really miserable. And at one point he pulls away from Meghan, who's got his arm, and he just sort of like snatches his arm away. And he just seemed tense and like he wasn't enjoying it. And not for the first time has he looked a little bit apprehensive before going on stage. And I just wonder whether he really enjoys these things anymore. And of course, there's the controversy. I mean, it's a PR disaster to have, Pat Tillman's mum saying it's not a good idea for him to receive the award, and potentially to have Venus Williams not clapping right next to him. I just don't think they're worth it at all for them.
And there is no immediate apprentice. We're not hearing that, so somebody's ready to jump in. And usually when you're in a large position like CEO, I mean, it surprises me if he were to give an advance that they wouldn't have somebody ready to announce on the tail end of this. So-and-so stepping down. He did incredible work for us. Congratulations to the new person that we've put in charge of this. That would make this story go away immediately, but that person doesn't exist yet, and that's not a good look for the Invictus team.
And ESPN argued that it was his work with the Invictus Games that made him a worthy candidate of this. Jake Wood, a previous winner of the awards, said regarding Prince Harry's nomination, "He's a royal prince. There are 100 different things he could have done with his life after service in the British Armed Forces, but he's chosen to dedicate a big portion of his post-military life to helping veterans." So I think that is part of the thinking. And there are some people, obviously, in the military community that feel that his work with the Invictus Games do justify an award like the Pat Tillman Service Award.
Split between Meghan and Harry was evident in their glowing Spotify exit announcement.
Yeah, and if you go back and look at Spotify's initial, announcement of the separation between Meghan and Harry and Spotify, they were glowing in their exit announcement, their exit press release too. I think that that's the best way to go. But Dominic Reed was the CEO of the Invictus Games Foundation. He said on his mentorship profile, because he offers mentorship online, that he built Invictus's success off the inaugural London 2024 Games, where he was event director. He said he was responsible for delivering the games and the nurturing of the Invictus spirit and its global impact, which Prince Harry repeats in his statement saying goodbye to him. Mr. Reed said it was time for someone new to take this vital movement forward into its second vigorous decade. He also made the point that he had done everything he'd initially planned to do. For instance, he says it was his idea to create this winter Invictus series that we're about to see. That's what Prince Harry was promoting when he sat down with Good Morning America within hours, I believe, after stopping to see his father after the cancer diagnosis. But to me, and I'm not trying to be super negative here, but if you are seeing something coming to life for the first time, like the Winter Games, wouldn't you actually want to see that come to fruition? Wouldn't you want to see that
really
all of the way through?
Yeah,
I feel like that's a little strange that you're saying, well, now that I've done everything I ever planned to do, I'm going to take a step back. Don't you want to see how the Winter Games kick off? And don't you want to see the success of the Winter Games?
Competing with Prince Harry's security is nearly impossible.
They have a beautiful large home. Their security is, you can't compete with the security they have. It's presidential, probably better than we saw on Saturday, if we're being honest, with President Trump in Pennsylvania. So his lifestyle is very expensive, and he has a lot of pressures on him right now. And Invictus is supposed to be the one shining thing, the one thing that gives him credibility, the one thing that is almost effortless because it's existed for 10 years and everybody loves it. So this is a real hiccup for Prince Harry, because now he has to go find somebody that he works well with, that he gels with for this very important role, and just hope that there's no more turnaround, because we know with Archwell Audio, Archwell Productions, revolving door of employees. We saw that at Kensington Palace. People moving over to work with William and Kate, people accusing them of bullying. I believe these two are very difficult to work with.
So there are a few things going on with the Invictus Games. Probably most importantly is the resignation of the Invictus Games CEO Dominic Reed, who's been in the position for basically 10 years since the inception of the Invictus Games. He released a statement which Prince Harry then parried with another statement thanking him for all his service. Dominic Reed is a former soldier, so this is something that's very close to his heart. And he really sort of took the Invictus Games from where it was to where it is now. The curious thing is the fact that he didn't stay to see through the Winter Games, which was actually his idea, and which was the reason why you saw Prince Harry promoting it in Canada. And he did that in a short interview with Good Morning America, where he sort of avoided questions about his family that I'm sure he was expecting. So there are many questions as to why he's decided to resign now. We know that this is just off the back of the fact that Prince Harry accepted the Pat Tillman Award.
Many believe others were more deserving of the award than Prince Harry.
They controversially accepted that award from the ESPYs, even though the soldier that this award was dedicated to, his mother, said that there were more deserving people than Prince Harry, but Prince Harry still chose to accept the award. Now, there's speculation as to whether this had anything to do with the former CEO's decision to step down, but so far, we haven't seen any indication of that. I think he just thinks it's his time, and I suspect there are more personal reasons behind that. But there's a bit of turmoil going on there, because now they have to find a new CEO to lead it. There's also questions about who's going to win the bid for the Invictus Games for 2027. It's now between Birmingham and Washington, D.C. We know that Birmingham City Council has had some financial troubles and are about £1 billion in debt. However, they have struck a new deal, a sort of interesting partnership that means that the city actually has no sort of financial input into the games. So they're really hoping that Birmingham Birmingham is really hoping that they will win the bid. But it's kind of an America versus UK sort of competition now going to see who will host the next Invictus Games. But obviously all this is in the backdrop of kind of logistical issues of finding a new person to chair the Invictus Games and to see it through its new decade, as the departing CEO said. So there are allegations that he is not interested in pursuing a film for Spare. So we know that he does own the film rights, and he hasn't actually sold it on to any independent media company. So that is under wraps if anything is going on there. But I'm sure the palace is breathing a sigh of relief, because after the bombshell of Spare, which became the fastest selling non-fiction book upon its release, I don't think that the royal family wants any more headache of seeing how they can prolong this whole saga. And I think Harry and Meghan have made it clear that they want to sort of move on from their grievance parade about the royal family. The question is how they're moving on. I don't think they've had a particularly inspiring start, and they're still trying to find their feet. But from what I'm hearing, Prince Harry has no intention of turning Spare into a film or some sort of series. It would actually be quite horrifying, because then we'd have to figure out who would play each character, which would be another whole drama that I don't think anyone is interested in.
In America, true heroes like Pat Tillman stand out.
Well, I think it was very foolish of them, because in America, which they should know by now, the Pat Timmons was a real hero. The company, all the people felt very, very strongly that he was a wonderful man and he was a hero. He was a brilliant footballer, and then he left that and fought after 9/11, and unfortunately 2004. But his mother, obviously heartbroken, was furious that she wasn't asked who could get the present that came with the thanking him for being such an amazing man. And she didn't want Harry to have it because she said he wasn't right, he'd been awful to his family, and he couldn't represent his son. And although he'd worked for Invictus Games, he hadn't done the whole thing, and he just didn't deserve it. But they continued, and it was very, very uncomfortable all the time. I mean, Meghan hung on to him, hold his hand and his arm so he could barely move. And when he went up to get the award, she clung to his hand, and he was walking and she was hanging on to it. And in the end, he obviously pushed it away and walked up. Now, what was that about? Was that because she wanted to go up and hold the award as well? I mean, she likes awards, nothing to do with that, but you don't take other people's which you don't deserve. And she shouldn't be always in the photograph. It's just shocking. But apparently Harry was in a terrible state about it. Backstage, he was absolutely distraught about what he should do and what he shouldn't do. And the piece that he read was very Meghan-like, actually. I mean, I went to loads and loads of with him where he made speeches, and they were very open and friendly, but this was sort of loads of boring words.
It's very rude because as soon as that particular event happened, they were leaving the event.
No, but it's very rude because as soon as that particular event had happened, they were leaving. I think if you go to one of these organizations, which is to thank people for doing wonderful things, you don't walk out in the middle. That's incredibly rude, isn't it? You just wait. Even if it's boring for you, you don't sort of walk out. It's very bad manners. And they rushed out just after Harry had said his speech. And I think that it was just a disaster. They need to know now where they stand, what they do, that they can't take other people's success and pretend it's their own. They just can't do that. They need to build their own life, but they don't seem able to. They're hanging on to their royal details and actually not living their own lives, which seems very strange. Very strange. If they're together and they're even the slightest bit happy, let them do what they want, not try and spoil things for other people. When he talked about Pat's mother, obviously Harry would think of his own mother, but then he should know. He said, I respect you, I understand you, but then he did nothing. Well, what does that mean? If he understood the relationship between a mother and a son, which is quite understandable, then you don't actually then make it very unpleasant for her. You make it as easy as you can. You don't take it away from her, make her even more unhappy that you've got the award.
The royal family will read the Riot Act if anyone speaks ill of Kate.
This source says even the family will be read the Riot Act, that's kind of British for laying down the law, if they utter a negative word about Kate. What do you know about this?
Well, again, what I would say is what we know, Stuart, is simply what they asked for. So this particular story, while it's a nice one, you could have put that to anybody. What we've done over here, particularly with the British media, is be respectful of what the Princess of Wales actually asked for, which is silence. But what happens is, every so often on social media, there's this thing trend, where's Catherine, where's Kate? The lady's recovering from a serious operation and ongoing treatment. So I think it's difficult, people, because they see His Majesty the King out and about, and he seems to have pinged back, we're now sort of thinking, well, where's Catherine? But I just think we need to remain respectful. And yes, regarding the family, I wouldn't assume anybody would speak out of turn, because that would be disrespectful, wouldn't it? Why would they? Hence the reason, though, Stuart, Prince Harry had a ring fence put round him, and His Majesty the King was a little too busy to see his youngest son. Terrible situation, but when you can't trust that family member, then that's the situation you're in. Hence the reason he wasn't allowed to stay in Windsor, allegedly, because, of course, that would be on the estate and that's where the gossip goes. So it's very tricky.
This unfortunate saga is being dubbed the siege of the Royal Lodge.
Well, you know, this unfortunate saga is being dubbed the Siege of the Royal Lodge. And it's, you know, just another reminder that Harry and William aren't the only royal brothers having a slightly strained relationship. I mean, the King loves his brother very much, the Duke of York, but certainly they've had some awkward encounters in recent years as the King's had to deal with the fallout from his brother's relationship with the Jeffrey Epstein. Now, Prince Andrew lost almost all his royal titles, positions and offices, but he retained Royal Lodge, which is a vast mansion, 30 rooms, 7 bedrooms, 90-acre estate, previously the home of Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother. And unfortunately, now that he's no longer a working royal, the security is being funded by the King personally to the tune of £3 million, on top of which there's also a living allowance that Prince Andrew receives from His Majesty. And the King, of course, is very keen to keep costs low and to make the monarchy value for money. And so he thinks it's much more advisable for the Duke of York, who lives there with his ex-wife, Sarah, Duchess of York, to move to Frogmore Cottage, which, of course, is now vacant following the departure of Harry and Meghan. They made some important refurbishments of the place, so it's ready to move into.